Alrighty, welcome to the Administration and Finance Committee meeting of September 12th, 2023. Starting off with our routine matters today. First, we call to order and take attendance. We have all trustees and student trustees present except for trustee Paula Demeto-Giovanazzi. So she's actually not, she has sent her regrets for today's meeting. All other trustees are present. Next, we move on to item A2, which is our opening prayer. And I pass it on to Vice Chair Bria Corbett.
Thank you, Chair Xavier. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Bless us as we gather today for this meeting. Guide our minds and hearts so that we will work for the good of our community and help all your people. Teach us to be generous in our outlook, courageous in the face of difficulty, and wise in our decisions. Father, we praise you forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Bria Corbett. Next, we move on to item 2A, which is our declaration of office and for the student trustee oath for a new Indigenous student trustee who's joining us today. Welcome to Bailey Klein, Madam Director.
Good evening and welcome to Bailey. Bailey's going to do her declaration of oath, and so I'm going to call Bailey forward as soon as I've given you a little bit of information about Bailey. So Bailey Klein is a grade 11 student at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Catholic Secondary School in Mississauga. She was elected by her Indigenous peers, and Bailey is proud to represent their voices and input as the 2023-2024 Indigenous Student Trustee. Bailey is very active in her school as a member of the track and field, basketball, and tennis teams. Additionally, she participates in chaplaincy, Together We Stand, Yearbook, Girls United, and Auto Club. She's an active member of Indigenous Education Council with the board and a part of the Indigenous Student Council. As a Catholic leader in her school, Bailey was chosen as the recipient of the Father Fogarty Award for 2022-2023. Congratulations, Bailey. She's been a keen learner of her Indigenous roots and is actively taking language courses in Anishinaabe Moan. Did I do a good job? Thank you. One of Bailey's passions is the Crochet Hat Project. As the creator and organizer, Bailey received a grant through We Matter that made the project possible. She leads groups of volunteers to crochet winter hats and other items to provide to remote Indigenous communities. Over the last 2 years, the group has made and donated over 300 packages of hats and mittens to Indigenous communities in Northern Ontario and Nunavut. Bailey is extremely proud to be the first Deaf and Peel Catholic District School Board Indigenous Student Trustee and looks forward to advocating on behalf of all students in the 2023-2024 school year. I'm going to call Bailey forward now to do her declaration.
I, Bailey Klein, do solemnly declare that I am not disqualified under any act from being a student trustee of the Deaf and Peel Catholic District School Board. I will truthfully, faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the Board of Student Trustee, and that I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of any partially or malversation under the or other undue execution of the said office, and that I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direction, or indirect as required by in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Declare before me at the City of Mississauga in the Province of Ontario this 12th day of September 2023. I, Bailey Klein, will undertake as my duty as a student trustee of the board to use my best efforts and all reasonable means to promote the continued protection of the denominational rights and privileges of the Roman Catholics as recognized by the law and guaranteed by Section 93 of the Constitution Act 1867, and of the continued provision of a fair share of education funding and of such other measures as the board from time to time deems necessary. Declared before me at the city of Mississauga in the province of Ontario, this 12th day of September 2023.
Thank you, Bailey. We're going to take you over to the table now for you to actually sign these declarations. And I would invite the chair and vice chair of the A&F committee, but also the vice chair of the board to join in the photo. Please join me in congratulating and welcoming Bailey.
Once again, congratulations, Bailey. We look forward to having you join us along with all the trustees. Next, we move on to item A4, which is our approval of the agendas. Could I get a mover for the approval of the agendas? Sorry, just before that, I still have item A3. And at this time, we would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge that we are on sacred Indigenous territory and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for being the stewards of this land. Now we take this opportunity to move on to item A4, which is our approval of the agenda. Could I please get a mover for moving the agenda? Moved by trustee Bruno Iannico. Any opposed? Seeing that, and sorry, anyone, do I need to take in favor? No, right? Motion's moved. Thank you. Next, we move on to item A5, which is our declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? Seeing no declarations of interest, we move on to our next item, which is A6, the approval of the Administration and Finance Committee meetings of June 6th, 2023. Do we have a mover? Moved by trustee Thomas. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We have no awards and presentations this evening. We have no delegations this evening. We move on to reports from trustees for receipt. First off, regular reports. The Ontario Catholic Trustees Association report. Trustee Luz Del Rosario, do we have any updates from Oxta?
Just a brief one, Mr. Chair. A reminder of the Oxta Fall Regional Meeting to be held on Monday, September 18th. So if any of you has the time and are able to join, please join us. It's going to be held in Hamilton at LaUna corporate offices, I believe, on Monday, September 18th at 9:30 in the morning. We'll have an updated report for the board meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, trustee Luz Del Rosario. Trustee Mario Pascucci.
Chairman, the question, the item I want to bring up is that we're going to be large boards, back up. Oxta is waiting for the meetings with the large boards, and see what's important on their agenda. So that will
We
be.
cannot hear you, Mario.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you
It's
now.
worse. There we
Please
go.
speak on the microphone.
Okay, thank you very much. So what's happening is Oxta has been waiting for a meeting with the other boards, the large boards. And we're going to communicate together at the upcoming meeting on Monday and figure out what's important from a large board perspective. And then we're going to convene a meeting sometime in November with the large boards, Toronto, Dufferin Peel, Ottawa, wherever. So I just want to give you an indication on that. So it's important that we attend on Monday so we can give input on terms of what's critical for us as a board, a large board, if you will. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
That's great, Mario. Are you attending then?
That's the plan.
Yeah, I didn't see your name on the list, so I think you may have missed to register.
Okay, no
So
problem.
please let Michelle know that to register you,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Trustee Mario Pascucci. Next, we're moving on to good news reports. Do we have any good news reports this evening? Seeing none, we have no updates, information reports from committees for receipt. We move on to item F, which is our updates, information reports from administration for receipt. Starting off with F1, our student transportation update and service delivery. Superintendent Matthew Thomas.
Good evening, and thank you very much. Through the chair, this evening it's my pleasure to introduce the new general manager of StopR, Anna Gentile. Anna has been a member of StopR for many, many years, working her way through the ranks. And Anna has just recently taken over from Roy Warenga, who the previous general manager, who had been with StopR for over a decade and actually took the opportunity to move to become the Chief Administrative Officer of the Central Ontario Student Transportation Consortium located in Peterborough, which just happens to be about 5 minutes from where he lives. So the opportunity presented itself, and while we're sad to see Roy go, we're thrilled to have Anna join us as our new general manager. And with that, I will invite Anna to present this evening's report.
Thank you, Superintendent Matthew Thomas. And through you, Mr. Chair, I am here to summarize the student transportation update and service delivery report that you have before you. Beginning with the bus operator driver update. StopR staff were very busy all summer long planning student transportation services for another school year. Normally, in the first few weeks of school, bus operators tend to post a higher number of delays than the rest of the school year. This volume is mainly due to the patience required as bus drivers, students, parents, and schools become familiar and adjusted with their new routines. The good news is that our bus operators have been very aggressive in recruiting bus drivers, and they have all committed to continuing their efforts in hiring, training, retaining drivers throughout the school year. As of the writing of this report, bus operators have informed us that they have a driver assigned to every route. This puts StopR in a good position. And again, this year, we will not be canceling any routes due to driver shortages. The next update is on courtesy transportation. As you may recall, last year, StopR tested a new timeline to start the courtesy seat process earlier than in previous years. Schools were given the ability to identify courtesy students in the student information system in the third week of September, and then StopR staff began assigning courtesy students to buses in the fourth week of September. We are very happy to report that this timeline worked well, and we will be implementing this new earlier schedule every year from now on. For this school year, this means that the courtesy process will already begin next week. Moving along to the annual first-time rider program. As stated in the report, The First Time Rider program is an educational program for students who are new to school busing. New students who have an opportunity to get familiar with the look and the feel of a school bus. They also learn some very important safety rules. This year, First Time Rider was held on Saturday, August 26th, and there were 683 students who registered for the program online on our stopr.ca website. The next update is on the LRT construction on Hurontario Street. StopR is very aware that there is ongoing construction and lane closures on parts of Hurontario Street that have the potential to cause bus delays. Please know that during our planning period, StopR staff did their absolute best to redirect buses off of Hurontario Street if there was an alternate route available. In situations where redirecting runs was not possible, StopR have adjusted times to reflect a more accurate schedule. Every day, StopR staff are proactively monitoring bus delays, and as of today, there were not any significant delays due to the LRT construction. That being said, we know that things can change, so our teams will continue to monitor daily delays and work with the bus companies and the schools to resolve any lengthy delays or repeated delays that come to our attention. Moving along to the update on the pilot testing of the Chipmunk school bus tracking application. StopR began testing a parent application at the end of the last school year. The app gave parents at selected pilot schools the ability to track their children's bus and receive estimated time of arrival notifications of when the bus would be arriving at their stop. StopR has just resumed the pilot testing for this app, and staff are currently collecting statistics and evaluating the app's performance. StopR staff hope to have a more fulsome report for you at our next meeting. And in that report, we hope to provide you with the results of the pilot testing and potential launch dates for the entire system. The final item in the student transportation update is in regards to School Bus Safety Week and School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. In Ontario, School Bus Safety Week is held every year in the third week of October. School Bus Driver Appreciation Day is always held on the Wednesday of School Bus Safety Week. This year, School Bus Safety Week is from October 16 to 20, and School Bus Driver Appreciation Day is on Wednesday, October 18th. During that week, StopR will post daily safety messages on our Twitter and encourage parents to watch safety videos together with their children on our website, stopr.ca. On School Bus Driver Appreciation Day, we hope that everyone will join us in thanking school bus drivers for their hard work and dedication in providing safe transportation to all of our students and school communities. This is the end of my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Anna, for that presentation. To questions. Bruno, Trustee Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just with regards to the first time rider program, if I use the 60-40 analysis of students of Peel and Dufferin Peel, that would mean that Dufferin Peel would have approximately 273 kids at 40%. I was hoping it would be considerably more than that, to be quite honest with you. The number of registrations that we had, I remember in the past, when I attended on a Saturday morning, they actually had Elmer, the safety elephant, which I guess dates how far back I go that we did have them. I'm kind of wondering if staff is on the same page of a little bit disappointed. I was hoping it would be more. I know that every council meeting that I attended, every school function that I attended in May and June, I spoke of it. During the week of, or the journey into learning, I spoke to parents about it, said, this is an opportunity for you to educate your children. Even if you don't take the bus, your children at one point will take the bus. I guess, I don't know. Personally, I'm a little bit disappointed with the number, to be honest with you. I was hoping it would be more. Staff have an idea of the 8 locations, what percentage were Peel and Dufferin Peel? And I don't expect that answer this very moment, but if it could be put in issues and events, unless you know now.
Through the chair, we will take that away and follow up and put that information into issues and events.
Would staff recommend anything different than what we did? And I know we did a lot. I know that we did a lot, and I'm not saying staff didn't do enough. That's not even remotely close to my thought. My thought is we didn't reach a lot. I knew 600 and change, 683 is a lot of kids, but
Sorry, just that through you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to add that the 683 registrations were the students who registered online. Every single year, there are a bunch of walk-ins that don't register, and I don't have those numbers yet. We're still waiting for feedback from our bus operators, but once I get that feedback, I can bring it back to you.
yeah, if staff can put it in issues and events, then the report is it's just about everything that we talked about. The rider program, the LRT, which if you live in South Mississauga, you have to pack a lunch to get here or dinner. And the Chipmunk program has been something that we've been waiting for and parents have been waiting for. So when I get to the 2 communities of this school the 2 communities of the schools that I represent of this board, I'll have an opportunity to talk to them and find out what their feeling is as well. And in good, bad, or indifferent, I'd be more than happy to share it with staff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Anika. Do we have any other questions? Trustee Bria Corbett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you, like Trustee Anika, we've been very anxious to get the feedback from the Chipmunk app so far. Is there any information you can provide in terms of number of schools that they trialed, or are they increasing the number of schools in the pilot this year, or generally what feedback parents had provided?
So right now, we started off with the 40 schools. It ended up being 39 in the end, at the end of last year, and we've just continued those same schools. We will be adding more schools as we go along, but I will tell you that at the end of last year, I believe the highest user count we had was around 40. And this year, we've actually gone up to 85 already. So that's double the users already. So yeah, so it's depending on how many users come on board, we'll be assigning additional schools.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman. So there's over 80 users, 80 parents that are using the Chipmunk app from 40 schools?
Correct.
Okay, so there needs to be a little bit more engagement from parents. Is this something that the schools have been encouraging their parents to use? And what information does the parent get? Is it just a tracking system, or is there updates if it's been delayed?
So through the chair, I'll start and then I'll hand it over to General Manager Gentile. So as Trustee Corbett would recall, late last spring, we started the rollout of the pilot. We were very cautious in terms of just rolling it out to a handful of schools. And I'll just clarify what General Manager Gentile said about the 39 schools. That includes both our board and the Peel District School Board. So there's actually 20 of their schools, 20 Peel District School Board schools, 19 Dufferin Peel. The aim of the pilot is to expand the level of access of our users, to have more and more parents buy in. The timing of the launch towards the end of the school year made it a little bit challenging in terms of really getting the message out, which is why we decided to resume the pilot as it was at the end of last school year for the start of this year, and then to ramp it up through the next few months. So part of the process, as Trustee Corbett has noted, is about engagement, about making sure that parents and guardians are aware of the app, and making sure that our administrators are also aware, because they're very important conduits in this process. So making sure that our school staff, our school administrators are aware of the app, its benefits, how it functions, giving them some more information and knowledge about how to use the app, I think will go a long way. So that's part of our plan over the next few weeks.
Thank you, Superintendent Thomas. That's great. I agree. I think there needs to be some more information for parents, and certainly if the schools are more comfortable with it, then that's great too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Corbett. Trustee Anika?
Mr. Chairman, on the list of the 19 schools that are of different appeal, can staff in issues and events also put in number of buses per school? Because I'm thinking of a school, one of the two schools that reside in the area of this board that I represent. And I have to tell you, I'm very surprised that there's one bus going to this particular school, because everybody comes in from the apartments that surround it. So, and most of those children's parents are, it's an extremely diverse school. Let me put it to you that way. So there's a lot of immigrant that live in the apartments that surround the school. And I'll be honest with you, I'm listening, but reading into that, I'm thinking, geez. And then when Anna made the comment, it kind of triggered my mind to say, well, I'm not even sure a bus goes in there. Like if it does, it can't be a very big bus, because everything is in that general area to that particular school. So if staff could indicate how many buses go into each of the schools that are in the pilot, it would kind of give us, or give me anyway, I won't speak for my colleagues, a little bit better of information, on how much more I need to educate our parents. So if that staff could, I would graciously appreciate that.
Through the chair, we can absolutely do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Anika. Do we have any other questions? Right, seeing no questions, thank you very much for that presentation. Next, we move on to item F2, which is our 2023 Facility Renewal Projects Update. Superintendent Matthew Thomas.
Thank you. And through the chair, the purpose of this report is to provide the Board of Trustees with an update on the status of Dufferin Peel's 2023 list of major facility renewal projects. More detailed information about the composition and criteria of the general categories and prioritization of projects was provided to trustees in the Long-Term Facilities Master Plan Facilities Update report, which was presented at the May 2nd Administration and Finance Committee meeting. Each year, the Facilities Department conducts a review of facility renewal needs across all of Dufferin Peel's buildings and sites. Based on the information compiled, projects are prioritized depending on factors such as condition, health and safety, and usage, among others. And a list of the year's facility renewal projects is compiled. For the year 2023, as found in Appendix A of this report, starting on page 24, trustees would see the planned renewal work for schools as established by our Facilities Department. I will note that since 2020, the landscape around construction-related activities has changed considerably. The cost of labor, materials, and equipment has increased sharply. Furthermore, supply chain lead times have risen, in some cases by many months. In addition, much of the major renewal work must be scheduled at times when students and staff are not occupying a building. As such, while every effort is made to ensure substantially all projects listed on the plan are completed in a timely manner, some of the projects listed must be deferred to fall 2023 or even summer 2024. You will notice that the report indicates that for projects not yet completed, an anticipated completion date would be identified. However, I will note that that was an omission on our part in finalizing the report, as the team was unable to obtain updated schedules in time for publication. It is our hope to be able to compile the 2024 facility renewal projects plan no later than early 2024, and my hope is for February at the very latest. This information will be provided to trustees once it has been finalized. Finally, trustees are aware of the significant and growing school renewal backlog facing us at Dufferin Peel. The latest aggregate estimate we have is a backlog totaling $345 million from the year 2020. We know, based on the age and condition of our buildings, that the current value of our backlog is now much higher than $345 million. When you look at the contrast between what that renewal backlog is, $345 million, and the amount of funding we are projected to receive in the 2023-2024 school year, namely $33 million, there is a significant gap. This gap is only widening. Again, I know trustees are well aware, but it is important to set that context when looking at the challenge facing our board with respect to addressing all of our facility renewal needs. That concludes the report, and General Manager Richard Mariah and I would be pleased to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions to this report? Trustee Anika?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I'd like to begin with a thank you to plant staff, especially General Manager Mariah. I think that we should put another stripe on his jacket and another star in his collar, because I inquired about something for one of the schools of this board that I represent that is actually, in my humble opinion, was extreme safety issue. That was done on a Thursday morning. Friday afternoon, it was done. And I have to tell you, sometimes we're very quick. Bruno's very quick to complain. But I think sometimes when somebody goes out of their way to ensure the health and safety of our kids, that they need to be acknowledged. And I think that all of us have had that situation. But I know the plant staff as a whole are always, and I know, Matthew, the conversations that you and I have had with regards to the same issues, but I think that I appreciate the level of work and detail that gets done for trustees, and I'll speak for myself, and I know in this respect, I'm not special because my colleagues have said the same thing of how plant staff reacts to a request, assuming it's not saying I want air conditioning in that school. Realistic concerns, realistic dues are done. And so, on behalf of my community, and especially the school that was affected in this particular area, St. Catherine of Siena, I want to thank plant staff and especially Richard, and another stripe and another star, and I greatly appreciate plant staff. My question, Mr. Chairman, can staff advise me what building automation system replacement is?
Through the chair, a building automation system is essentially a controlling of the temperature and ventilation systems across all of our schools. The system is actually set up in such a way that it can be monitored centrally at the board facilities office. And so they have real-time data that monitors any fluctuations that might be happening in real time. If there's a challenge with temperature setting or ventilation in a certain building, they have the ability to make adjustments in real time from the central heating system.
And thank you. And synchronize clocks. How does that get done?
Through the chair, I'll ask General Manager Mariah to answer that one.
Thank you. Through the chair, that's similar to our building automation system. All the clocks are synchronized so that, we have to work with the bell times, etc. So that's clearly working.
Sorry, I cannot hear. You're fading away, Richard.
Through the chair, if I can, it's like different Peel time. It's like a new time zone.
Okay, yes, we want to make sure.
They're all synchronized to be the same. So this one
Okay.
is similar. Right. up.
Yes,
Thank you.
all controlled centrally.
And I noticed in one of the schools in the area of this board that I represent, it has field restoration. The staff sent me an email on what that field restoration was, because I know we had a conversation and I'm wondering what that is. Because I was at that particular school this week and I didn't saw what wasn't, but I didn't see what was. But if staff could let me know, I would appreciate it.
Through the chair, we can do that.
Thank you. And again, thank you to staff for everything that they've done in ensuring that our schools are open, clean, and ready for our kids on Tuesday. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, trustee Anika. On my speakers list, I have trustee Corbett, trustee Valoria, and trustee Del Rosario. Next, I have trustee Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. So with the heat wave that we had the very first week of September, I know I had daily phone calls with Matthew, so thank you very much. So since trustee Anika is giving accolades, I can also as well thank you as well for your leadership and your speedy response. Much appreciated. We heard from a lot of parents regarding the status of their air conditioning in their school, the portables that are outdated, that don't have AC, very, very humid and hot temperatures, and very uncomfortable for our children to learn in. I recognize that you mentioned tonight we're going to be getting more information in February. If it's possible to get just a summary of the air conditioning upgrades that have been done in our schools and the status of where those are at. It's helpful when we chat with parents, and we have upcoming council meetings, the first ones for this month. So it would be helpful to be able to share that with the school communities as well.
Thank you. Through the chair, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, trustee Corbett. Next, I have trustee Herman Valerio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, there is quite a gap that as Superintendent Thomas mentioned, that we need 345 million to fix everything, and we're only expecting 33 million coming in. Is there any chance of closing the gap, or will it continue to widen?
Through the chair, I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to look into the future and give you better news, but the reality is that this gap is growing. A part of the reason for that is that our buildings are aging. We have many buildings now that are over 30, 35, 40 years old. As they age, different building systems, different components reach the end of their life cycle. Our maintenance department tries its best on an annual basis to undertake regular upkeep to keep things functioning as long as possible. And sometimes, just like with your house, there may be some items, items you kind of prioritize. You know, there are some things you need to attend to, but maybe you can get 1 or 2 more years out of it, as long as you're not compromising health and safety. So it's the same approach that our facilities department essentially undertakes here, where we do that ongoing prioritization. We look at the needs, we look at where the most urgent critical items are that are required to be addressed, and we make decisions accordingly. We have, I will note, we have continued, and all school boards have raised the issue around school renewal funding. That the backlog in renewal needs continues to grow at an unprecedented level. I believe province-wide, it's now in excess of $17 to $18 billion in terms of the aggregate renewal backlog, and that's at about 5,000 schools across the province. So by comparison, Dufferin Peel is actually in relatively good shape, if you can believe that. There are other boards that are in much, much worse shape with respect to the staggering reality that they're facing to try and address school renewal needs. So the answer to the question, though, Trustee Valoria, is that at this time, we continue to do the best that we can with the funding that we have, but there is no sort of lifeline being thrown our way with respect to narrowing the gap.
Thank you, Superintendent Thomas.
Thank you very much, Trustee Valoria. Next, we have Trustee Luz Del Rosario.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to kind of recognize the Superintendent Mariah or General Manager Mariah. The odor or the portable that that was having problem with one of my schools, the Our Lady of Good Voyage, is finally gone. So the parents are really very happy not to smell that odor as soon as they walk in the door. So I just want to thank you very much for that. Finally, we got them out. And also I want to recognize, as Trustee Corbett mentioned, with the heat wave last week, one of my schools as well that I represent, St. Gerard, for some reason, their air conditioning really broke down. Well, the schools or the classrooms that they have a little bit of air conditioning basically broke down. So not even air they were having. And I was very thankful to the staff for sending so many fans to the schools just to make sure there's air going around. So I'm very, very thankful on behalf of my community. Thank you so much for doing that. And it's really a quick turnaround. We heard about it early in the morning or just before lunch. And by the afternoon, things were coming, and the parents and the teachers, I have to tell you, the teachers were also very happy because we don't want our teachers to be suffocating as well with the heat that's going on. So I just want to express my thanks to Matthew and the rest of the team for really pulling that through. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Trustee Del Rosario. Do we have any other questions? Student Trustee Nathan.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation through the chair. Staff have told me, I'm from Notre Dame, and staff have told me that air conditioning units during the school hours are on and after school hours are off. So can you tell me why this automation happens? Because I know that a lot of students during the heat wave have complained that it's been exceptionally hot. So there's like a answer and clarification why this happens.
Okay, thank you for the question. Through the chair, we have managed our buildings with the airflow and air conditioning, and it's an energy conservation measure. We're not running our schools when they're not occupied with full air conditioning. It takes a toll on the chiller and the mechanical equipment that serves that building. So we usually have the units on 2 to 3 hours before school starts and through the school day, and then leave it 2 hours after school activity ends to flush the building out, and then to let the mechanical units have a little bit of a rest from running full. That's the strategy we use.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Trustee Anika.
Mr. Chairman, can staff again explain to me special needs accommodation, what that is? Because when I go to the schools of this board that I represent, and I want to talk about these items specifically, I want to know what I'm talking about specifically. Not what was done, but I can mention that there were special needs accommodations work that was done. Is it a ramp for somebody in a wheelchair? What type of work is that?
Through the chair, it can be that kind of work. It can be a ramp to assist someone with accessibility challenges. It can be a barrier-free access door that's installed into a school to assist somebody who may have either mobility or accessibility needs. It can be a retrofit inside of a classroom. If there's somebody, for example, who has some mobility challenges. It could be installation of equipment. It could be installation of specific building infrastructure items that can assist a student who may otherwise experience challenges.
There's another question that I had, and it escapes me now because I was thinking of Trustee Del Rosario and her comment, but I'll pass. I'll if I remember, I'll ask staff myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Nika. Do we have any other questions? Seeing no other questions, thank you very much for that presentation. Next, we're moving on to item F3, which is our trustee honoraria. I pass it on to Executive Superintendent Julie Cheripaco.
I have lots of that. Thank you, through the chair. Each year of the term in office for trustees, there's a requirement under Ontario Regulation 35706 to establish the honoraria. There is set components. Those components are a base amount that has been set, hasn't been changed in a number of years, an enrollment amount, an attendance amount, and distance amount. The real change to honoraria for trustees at Dufferin Peel is connected to the enrollment amount, and the calculation requires us to use the estimates enrollment from the prior year. As trustees are aware, we've been experiencing declining enrollment, so those estimates for enrollment have been declining in previous years as reported. Page 29 of the agenda shows you the new honoraria amounts for the year that will begin November 15th, 2023 and go to November 14th, 2024. There is a decline in the honorarias across the board for trustee, vice chair, and chair. Again, that is the impact of declining enrollment. The honoraria is set, it's established, honoraria is paid bi-weekly. And if there's any questions on this information, prepared to answer them.
Do we have any questions? Trustee Nika.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank staff. I mean, for being consistent every year on a declining number that I've been a trustee for 30 or plus, and I started at 19,200. 30 years later, I'm making 17,870. And I know, I mean, I'm joking because I know it's not staff or anything else, but it makes me laugh. It's actually saddens me because over the weekend when I heard the premier talk about school boards and he was not very kind. He made a comment, says, I care about this, I care about that. And school boards, and I'll paraphrase, I don't know what they do. Heck, I really don't know what they do. And in my mind, I thought, why would you have said that to people that are listening to you? When you pay school boards billions of dollars, you should know what they do. You should know the challenges that they have. I am sure that he has no idea of our situation that we're experiencing here with the fact of the $94.9 million that we have to pay back because of LTD for something that his government will not address. This is not something that we should shoulder. And my colleagues, I won't speak for them, but that's my opinion. But it is sad that he makes a comment like that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Trustee Nika. Do we have any other questions? Seeing no questions, thank you very much for that presentation. Next, we move on to item F4, our Treasury Report. Executive Superintendent Cheripaco.
Through the chair, thank you. I'm actually going to have Superintendent Brian Hester present this report for you.
Thanks, Julie. Variety is good. Through the chair, report F4 on page 30 is an update on the treasury operations of the board. Ministry Regulation 4110 prescribes the investing and borrowing environment the school boards must operate within. For 2022-23, it was very similar to prior years where we continue to borrow money on a regular basis to meet our operating expenditure obligations. The board has 2 borrowing resolutions in place, one for operating and one for capital purposes as shown in the report. For operating purposes, we are constantly utilizing our credit facilities with our financial institution to meet our needs. Total interest paid for operating purposes this year was a substantial amount at $1 million. This directly impacts our budget as there is no funding for this. Financial services continues to spend a lot of time monitoring our cash flows to ensure all of our operational needs are met. For capital purposes, short-term borrowings utilized until funds for capital expenditures are reimbursed by the ministry 2 times per year. Substantial capital work takes place over the summertime, as we just heard, and that's for our school condition improvements and other repair projects, as well as for work on capital renovations or for additions such as childcare projects. Final component is related to debentures. Debentures are a form of long-term debt historically utilized by the Ministry of Education to fund large capital projects. Ministry flows funds for principal and interest amounts to the board to cover our required payments. No new debentures have been issued in any recent history as the ministry directly funds capital expenditures on an approval basis. And as I noted, cash is flowed to the board 2 times per year to give us the funding to reimburse those expenses. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. I'd be pleased to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Do we have any questions? Seeing no questions. Thank you very much. That concludes item F of our agenda items. Before I move on to item G, I just wanted to bring to your attention item A for the approval of the agenda. We had a construction progress report also included within it. We've already moved the agenda, approved the agenda, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention that construction progress report is present within the agenda items. Moving on to item G, we have our trustees committees administration reports requiring action, starting off with G1, our capital priorities program for 2023-2024. Superintendent Matthew Thomas.
Thank you. And through the chair, before I hand it over to Manager of Planning Stephanie Cox to present this evening's report on capital priorities, thought it might be instructive to provide the Board of Trustees, and particularly those trustees who are newer, a little bit of background about the capital priorities program. The program itself began in 2011. The Ministry of Education initiated this program as a grants-based program to provide school boards around the province with direct capital funding to cover the cost of major capital projects. And major capital projects include new schools, major additions, and significant renovations and retrofits. The Capital Priorities Program typically funds in the neighborhood of about $500 million in projects across school boards in Ontario on a 12 to 18-month cycle. The 2023-24 capital priority cycle was just announced by the ministry last month. And as I indicated earlier, I'm going to now turn it over to Manager of Planning Stephanie Cox to provide more details about the program and Dufferin Peel's submission that we're planning to make in that regard.
Thank you, Superintendent Thomas. Good evening, and through the chair. On August 14th, the Ministry of Education announced the launch of the 2023-2024 Capital Priorities Program, which we also refer to as the CP submission. As trustees are aware, Dufferin Peel was successful in obtaining approval for the construction of a new Mount Pleasant Elementary School with a childcare center and a rebuild of St. Anne Catholic Elementary School in previous capital priorities requests. Both projects are currently in the tendering stage, and the current capital priority submission deadline is October 20th. Current CP requirements similar to prior submissions, maintain that boards can submit projects related to accommodation pressures, school consolidation, and facility condition. The criteria requires that school boards demonstrate an urgent pupil accommodation need in order to be considered for funding approval. As with previous CP requests, projects are to be ranked and a business case with accompanying background information must be provided. Other similar criteria include consultation with coterminous boards and municipalities to consider joint use projects, as well as consultation with the Region of Peel, the board's consolidated municipal service manager, to determine childcare needs. There are some very specific requirements that will also distinguish the critical projects. These include demonstrating that utilization of the proposed project will be at or greater than 100% in the 5th year after opening, as well as demonstrating that utilization of the surrounding schools will also be at or greater than 100% in the 5th year after the project opens. With the inability of Dufferin Peel to engage in pupil accommodation reviews to close schools, this limits the strength and number of capital priorities that the board can comfortably put forward. Currently, capacity exceeds enrollment in many areas of the board, which is a large factor when demonstrating utilization needs in the greater community. In addition to the basic information, there have been some significant changes to the complexity of information required for the current round of capital priorities. Boards are now required to integrate longer-term growth needs in relation to municipal growth plans, which are related to the Housing Supply Action Plan. Staff will engage municipal staff to provide information on projected growth that can be integrated into the long-term projections. Another new requirement entails submission of a school design, which includes a facility fit and cost consultant report, all of which require a funding source. The Ministry of Education is strongly encouraging repeat designs for proposed projects, which must be aligned with current ministry space benchmarks and where projected costs are aligned with current market conditions. Therefore, boards are required to estimate the total cost of the project in the year the project is proposed to be tendered, as well as providing key milestone dates from funding approval to project completion. In considering the requirements put forward for the 2023-2024 Capital Priorities Program, staff is recommending that the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board submit the Mount Pleasant Catholic Secondary School project located in the city of Brampton. Since this is the only project proposed, the ranking process established by trustees for previous CP requests will not be required for the subject submission. The Ministry of Education has indicated that the evaluation process for selecting approved projects will include performance history on previous capital projects related to adherence to project timelines, cost overages, current inventory of projects, adherence to space template benchmarks, and capital accountability framework compliance. Based on the preceding information and information provided in the subject report regarding the 2023-2024 Capital Priorities Program, once again, staff recommends that the Mount Pleasant Catholic Elementary School in the city of Brampton be submitted as a growth-related project. Staff will consult with coterminous boards, the city of Brampton, and the Region of Peel to determine partnership opportunities. Staff will ensure completion and submission by the October 20th deadline. This concludes the presentation of the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that trustees might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Do we have any questions? All right, Trustee Mario Piscucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the report. May I ask a question? And this is directly, well, actually indirectly to you, but through your superintendent. St. Alfred, a number of years ago, was on the priority list, and it was decided that by the ministry that it's not going to be covered. The question I'm going is, where can we go from a historical perspective to show that, in fact, not only do we have that, we had a school that was basically put forward by us, approved by us at this table, us meaning who was at the time at the table around here, and then now it's not available or it's not allowable. Is there a reason about that, or is there something I'm missing in the mix here?
Through the chair, I'll try and answer that in a couple of different ways. One being that Every year, the Ministry of Education asks every school board to submit a list of capital priorities that is approved by their respective boards of trustees. The evaluation process that the ministry uses may not always align with the prioritization scheme that a school board may submit. So for example, if we at Dufferin Peel had submitted, say, St. Alfred number 1, School B as number 2, School C as number 3 in a submission, the ministry reserves the right to be able to evaluate all those projects and say that project number, School C, project ranking number 3 is the only one that we're going to approve for you, Dufferin Peel. So there is that. They look at the merits of every particular business case that's presented. They have in recent years been favoring growth-related schools, so schools that are required to address new enrollment that cannot be adequately accommodated in nearby schools. So that seems to be the #1 target of priority for them. They have also looked at consolidation opportunities, and as Manager Cox mentioned earlier, the pupil accommodation review process has had a moratorium imposed on it for a number of years. So that's not really a viable path forward for most school boards anymore, given how long that moratorium has been in place. So really, growth schools is the #1 thing that they seem to be focused on. If we're talking about a school like St. Alfred or other schools that are of a certain vintage that might be in a position where they're starting to age, the condition may be deteriorating. The ministry does take that into account, but it doesn't rank as highly as addressing new growth population.
Thank you for giving me a status report as opposed to support of the ministry, because the ministry has a lot of things. I know staff provides all the information and you do great things to try to get us the money, et cetera. There's no question. But when you hear an ad on the radio saying we're going to contribute, we're going to donate, or we're going to give money to schools, et cetera, bring them to the 21st century, whatever, I mean, we're halfway through it. The fact of the matter is that they're speaking on both sides of their mouths. And that's the concern I have. And where to bring this, actually, I have another question, Mr. Chairman, but it's relative to this, but I don't want to continue on for this. But suffice to say, thank you very much for that. I'll ask a second part to this question in a moment.
For what, Trustee Anika?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask this question tonight versus asking it at the board table, but I reserve the right to ask it at the board table. This money is only used for growth, new schools, additions, or additions due to growth, not the removal of porta packs, such as the one at a number of our schools, but specifically Mary Fix. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Trustee Anika. Next, I have Trustee Darrell D'Souza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is with regard to the new Mount Pleasant School. If I heard Manager Cox specifically this evening, she said that one of the requirements that we present to the ministry is that the enrollment for the schools from which we are going to, from the holding schools, will not go below 100% in the next 5 years. Was I hearing right?
Through the chair, the ministry requests that we identify schools in the general vicinity of the location of our proposed project. And they want to ensure that utilization of the project and the new school, and the surrounding schools will be at or above 100% utilization within the next 5 years. So for example, if we're looking at Mount Pleasant Secondary, we would look at St. Edmund Campion, Notre Dame, St. Roch. We would look at the utilization of those schools going forward.
Right. Now, we've gotten approval for an elementary school in Mount Pleasant.
Through the chair, that is correct.
And the tenders are out right now for building that new school.
Through the chairs, that is correct.
Now, when we're building an elementary school, they don't have that requirement where the surrounding schools will maintain 100% utilization over the next 5 years?
Through the chair, when we put in our capital priority submission for the Mount Pleasant Elementary School, they did look at utilization. However, for this round of priorities, they were very specific on what they were looking for, and they specifically identify that utilization needs to be at or above 100% utilization.
Because in the past, if I remember right, whenever we've built a new elementary school, the utilization of the surrounding or the holding schools have gone down significantly. And it's not even 90 or 80% of its capacity. Isn't that a right statement that I'm making?
Through the chair, I'll just note that to Trustee D'Souza's question, when submissions are made, enrollment projections are forecasted out, sometimes 10 or more years into the future. And enrollment projections, as we've seen in last few years, especially through COVID, there have been some dramatic shifts that would not have been anticipated previously. Certainly our planning department can attest to the fact that projections going back historically have been pretty solid. But the last few years, certainly, I think not just our board, but pretty much every board in the GTA would say that it's been much more of a challenge to adequately or accurately forecast those numbers. That said, the point Trustee D'Souza is making about the impact on neighboring schools, it is typical that you will see that kind of an impact. Ideally, the Ministry of Education would look to see, in the short term at least, that when a new school is built, that you wouldn't have a dramatic drop-off in enrollment in neighboring schools, but it can happen. It also depends on fluctuations in demographics.
Thank you for that response, Superintendent Thomas. And in which ward would this new elementary school be coming in?
Through the chair, if you're are you referring to the secondary school or the elementary school?
Both.
Both. The secondary school, the location is at the corner of Mississauga Road and Wanless Drive, so Northwest Brampton. And the elementary school, I want to say, is kind of just west of McLaughlin. I think it's between McLaughlin and Chinguacousy. Again, kind of in that Wanless Road area.
Do we know the ward? Brampton ward?
We, through the chair, we'll look that up and get that information to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Trustee Mario Pascucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where I'm coming from on this is that I'd like to find something out from staff. I don't need a report created. I need a report assembled. Basically, where we can go to a community and go back to the local MPP and say, listen, you're playing games with children here. Because the fact of the matter is that you're giving us a scenario, and I'm referring to South African Alfreds at this point. You're giving us a scenario, and then you change midway through, which in fact tells us or questions your authenticity when you just make a decision of sorts. So through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, that in fact, if I can ask and can meet with Michael, with Mr. Thomas, that in fact we can talk about this in terms of next steps, recognizing our staff is doing absolutely everything they can according to the law, in time with the law, reports that are full and complete. They do better jobs than most, I'm sure. But the fact of the matter is, anything that's said, and where I'm offended right now is anything that's said on TV, radio, wherever, by the current government is not playing out at the boardroom table. And again, it's not yourselves, it's one body to another body here. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to mention I'd like to do that. So if I can, Madam Director, is that okay with you? Thank you.
The chair, yes.
Thank you, Madam Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Mario Pascucci. Next, I have Trustee Bruno Inica.
Very quick, Mr. Chairman, if this was approved by the province of Ontario and we had approval to build the school, would staff be looking at putting artificial turf at that school?
Through the chair, that's a great question. The proposal at this point is still to be somewhat determined in terms of the use of the land. As Manager Cox indicated, we had previously submitted this project to the ministry through the prior round of capital priorities, and it was denied by the ministry. At that time, the proposal for this project included a shared use partnership agreement with the city of Brampton. The specifics of that agreement were not really, sort of detailed. It was basically a conceptual level agreement to say there is interest on the part of the city of Brampton to work with the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board to investigate what could be done in terms of a joint use arrangement on that site, which was excellent news for us. We thought at the time it really strengthened our case to the ministry. Unfortunately, the ministry decided not to approve the business case. That said, artificial turf is something that we know our municipal partners are generally interested in, and it is something that we can take back to the city of Brampton. As Manager Cox indicated, we will have further discussions with them, and that is something that we can highlight.
Would it be part of the funding, or would it just have to be a scenario where we would have to build less but get the field, like cut costs somewhere else in order to get the field? They allocate, sake of an argument, $10 million, but out of that, not only would the school be built, but a partnership be built, and then the cost of the field be segregated, whatever way that is. That the allocation of funds from the city of Brampton is not what I'm worried about, or us. What I am worried about is we build another school with no turf, while other school boards are building schools with turf. And I won't have to, some of the schools in Peel that have sports schisms are drawing more and more kids because they have facilities. Some of our schools do not. And so I guess my original question is, will we have to build less of a school to get the field to pay for our percentage? And I know that this is conception right now. It's nothing until the ministry says, yeah, you're good to go. And then the real work really begins from staff. But would that be the scenario that we would be facing?
Through the chair, I'll start, and then maybe Superintendent Thomas can continue. But if you're looking specifically for just Dufferin-Peel to build the turf field, the ministry is very prescriptive in when we have to fill out our space template. So there are certain things we have to have in the school. There are certain benchmarks that we have to meet. In terms of building less of a school, I'm not sure it works exactly that way. I think really our best bet would be if we had a community partner to fund the turf field itself. As we're bringing the land to the table, they would be bringing the cost of the turf, similar to what we've done at Marcellinus and Loyola.
Through the chair, if I could just add to that, the ministry funding, the ministry doesn't fund artificial turf fields. So what we would do, or traditionally have done, and what other school boards do, is they augment that ministry funding with either proceeds of disposition that they may have, or accumulated surplus that they may have. So when you submit your business case, you would submit a business case that would say, here is the building that we are allowed to build under your benchmark costs. And to offset the cost of our half of a field or our full funding of a field, here's where we're proposing that the additional funds come from.
Thank you, Trustee Anika. Do we have any other questions in regards to the report? Seeing no questions, we have a motion to approve. Motion goes as follows: that the Administration and Finance Committee meeting recommend to the Board of Trustees that Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board's capital priorities submission for the year 2023 to 2024, consisting of the new Mount Pleasant Catholic Secondary School be approved. Could I please get a mover? Moved by trustee Anisha Thomas. Any opposed? All in favor? Can I get you to put your hands up? Thank you. Any opposed? Being none, carried. Next, we move on to item, oh, there it is. Sorry, item G2, which is procedural bylaw. General Counsel Margaret Beck.
Thank you, and through the chair, good evening. At the last meeting of the Board of Trustees, we presented a new draft of the bylaw for consideration, and trustees asked for revisions to be made. So pending any further comments from trustees, the bylaw is before you to consider recommending to the Board of Trustees that it be approved and enacted as amended. I will now take you through the few amendments that we have made. On page 54 of the agenda in section 5.9, we added in section C with regards to having camera on when you are attending a meeting electronically. It states, ensure that the camera is on when voting and during the rest of the meeting. If a trustee needs to turn their camera off, they will advise the recording secretary if they have left the meeting for any length of time. The next change that was made in response to trustees' requests is Article 7, delegations and submissions on page 59 of the agenda. Actually, at the bottom of page 59 of the agenda, it states the chair may rule that the delegation is out of order and end the delegation if, in the chair's opinion, either of the following occurs. What we did was we expanded on what needs to happen. The first point is if the information in the delegate's oral speech is significantly different than the written speech provided. So that does away with the delegate having to read their speech that they provided to us verbatim. And then the second part is that if the delegate's speech, notes, and or other materials contain, or if the delegate begins to use language that, in the opinion of the chair, constitutes either of the following. One would be an invasion of privacy, breach of confidentiality, defamation of character, or it is obscene. And B, discrimination against an individual or group of individuals based on a protected ground under the Ontario Human Rights Code. And we've listed the current protected grounds under the Ontario Human Rights Code. The last change that was made is found starting on page 75 of the agenda. That's Appendix D, where we have clarified what agendas should look like for various meetings, because not all matters that are listed on an agenda in a Board of Trustees meeting need to be on the agenda of committee meetings. So we are streamlining that and also making it more clear by setting out the agendas for each type of meeting for your consideration. So those are the changes that have been made, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, we have a motion to approve. The motion goes as follows: that the administration and Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees that the procedural bylaw be approved and enacted as amended. Can I please get a mover? Moved by trustee Bruno Iannica. Any opposed? Seeing none. Carried. Next, we move on to next item, which is questions asked by, actually, sorry, we have no additional business this evening. We move on to item I, which is questions asked by trustees. Trustee Mario Pascucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two items, and I'd like to direct this to the Mr. Thomas, sorry, just S.O. Thomas. The concern I have, there are two documents coming from the community of St. Sophia regarding concerns regarding the portables and the environment itself. And so to that question, I'll just designate the first letter of the last name, so I don't have to mention it here, but one letter written by the letter D and one letter written by the letter L, and I'll share the names with you concerns they have is regarding the safety and the condition of the portables at the school. Can you give me an idea of what's happening there from your perspective that you're prepared to share with us right now? And our next steps, if you will.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. The issue is, if I'm understanding correctly, is around the warm spell that we experienced last week and the experience of those students and staff who were situated in the portables at St. Sophia. As has been shared with trustees previously on, and this situation applies at any number of our schools that do have portables. We have an aging portable fleet, and part of what we are trying to do at Dufferin Peel is to modernize that old fleet of portables and replace them with brand new, fully air-conditioned ones. We are trying to do this in a systematic way. It's a long-term strategy that's going to take many years. We are limited in scope in terms of how we can do that because of the challenges we have on funding. And we have to prioritize funding and allocate that funding across so many different items, as was mentioned earlier this evening in our facility renewal projects update. So we're trying to work through that list of portable replacements. For this year in 2023, we were able to purchase 5 portables, and those are brand new portables, which we will be getting installed in the coming weeks. But when you've got a fleet of in the neighborhood of 200, many of which are 30 years old and older, that do not have air conditioning, it's going to take us some time to get around to replacing all of those portables. But that is indeed the plan. The other thing I'll note too is that St. Sophia, like every school, would have had hot temperature or warm temperature heat plan, a plan for getting students and staff into the building where it is air conditioned at that particular school to ensure that students and staff have an opportunity to circulate and or relocate at various points during the instructional day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a follow-up to that question, if I may, is there an opportunity for you to communicate, will be able to communicate through your office or through another office to basically mention to these individuals what's happened as a follow-up and what's occurring, basically your report that you're given now? Is that possible?
Through the chair, I will note that my colleague, Superintendent Belchior, has already responded to a couple of similar inquiries to the ones that have been raised this evening. And she will commit to following up with any outstanding inquiries that come her way.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, that's great. The concern I would have, of course, it has to be delivered directly to those individuals. And the fact of the matter is that they should be mentioned, it should mention that this is not just something we're putting off. I'll go back to what I said earlier. Ministry wants to put some fresh money into, accommodations and stuff. And that's in their ad. They're not doing anything. So I'd like to parlay this up eventually to get some kind of a satisfactory resolution from the parents' perspective, of course, and from the Dufferin Peel. We're only as good as what we can and what we have. And again, I appreciate it, but the fact is, at the end of the day, this community deserves the best it can get. It should be also reminded, and this is where I want to become slightly political. The school accepted a number of individuals from the Ukraine about 2 years ago. And the question I have to ask, if somehow we can embed the response to this, that in fact, that may have in fact caused us an issue, not the acceptance of the individuals by any means, you accept them for sure. The fact of the matter is they didn't come through to assist us in terms of support. Them as the ministry at this point, or even the federal government, if you will. Because it's a point where as a community, we did our job as best we can with the little money that we had to basically do something literally overnight. And our staff's done a great job, but however, this is where we're at now. It's almost a twix in between. So I'd like to get that into a response of some sort as part of the further discussion on this concept, a discussion on this issue. And if that sounds possible, I'd like that to be done. Also, the next point I like also is the fact that I would like all trustees to be CC'd on these documents. These documents for the simple reason this is a regional school. And I don't mind, carrying, because it is in my area, the fact of the matter is, this is a regional school. I have some other stuff I want to talk about, Mr. Chairman, but I'll wait until you talk.
Thank you, Trustee Moyer.
Sorry, does that sound okay, Madam Director?
Through the chair, yes, we'll ensure that communication is given to those individuals and ensure in future any responses will be copied to all trustees.
And also, if possible, can you ensure that in fact, with the next or first school council meeting, that this issue be brought up in the agenda item so that we can show that in fact it's being moved and where we're at on this whole thing? I don't want to just play a game, and we are not doing that by any stretch. Make it look, we are in fact taking this extremely seriously, and I see that in our faces. Thank you.
The chair,
so much.
yes, we'll ensure that we connect with school council. If we need to have facility staff there through Superintendent Matthew Thomas, we will.
Thank you again for you've done. I really appreciate it, everybody. Really do. Thank you. Chairman, I'd like to ask more questions.
Thank you, Trustee Mario Pascucci. To this exact same point, we have Trustee Bruno Inika.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that St. Sophia was the only school that was affected by portables, because I can tell you, I've had the calls and I've explained to them exactly what staff explained because, I've heard it each year. So I don't think that any one school should be treated any differently than anybody else. If one school is going to have air-conditioned portable, I know that staff has, when they've purchased 5, they've shared them all in every school board or every school of this board that we've had. Second point that my colleague made was that because the school accepted a number of kids, my recollection from a report that was submitted and spoken to by the associate director and the superintendent was that the school was not busting at the seams like we had anticipated. In fact, a significant number of those people ended up going home, or in a couple of my cases ended up going to, and I'll look at Trustee Bria Corbett because every time I talk about St. Timothy's, she always laughs. They did go to St. Timothy's, some of them. They were spread throughout the area of this board that I represent and St. Paul. So the staff have a general idea of what the population from the Ukraine actually is. And if so, then it would give credence to my colleague's comment. But if not, I'd hate to look at the ministry, go to the ministry with this conversation and look bad.
Through the chair, preliminary information, and we're still finalizing that information, but preliminary information from numbers that would have been submitted from schools last week in regards to enrollment would show that St. Sophia is down about 40 students below the projected number they were anticipated to have.
Were those students that were originally did they come in or just in general? Came in from the Ukraine under the status of the government of Canada?
Through the chair, we don't have all those details.
Okay.
We know that JKSK population is pretty robust. It's students here, there, and everywhere especially from grades 4 and up. But it'll take us some time to collect the kind of information around where those students went.
Yeah, that would be, I know in some of the schools of this board, like I said, during open houses, some of them have said, well, this is, some of them don't speak English at all. So there's an interpreter, but it would be ideal to find out where they went, and more importantly, if they ended up going to the public school. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Trustee Inika. To the same point, I have Trustee Mario Pascucci.
No, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. It's not my intention to say one school A or B, but the fact is that I appreciate you addressing that. It's going to take a while to accumulate the data. And the concern I have is 40 less students, et cetera. Could wait as long as there's an interim response saying, thank you for your email. On some kind of response. Thank you, Bruno, for that.
Mr. Chairman, I can't hear Trustee Mario Pascucci.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Mario Pascucci. Next, I have Trustee Bria Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you. My question is regarding activity fees. And I apologize to trustee Del Rosero. You need to sit through another meeting where I asked just one question on activity fees. Although we had an increase in activity fees and it was approved and revised back in April of 2021, not all schools initiated the increase at the time. Many have. Last year, we discussed some options and a way forward in terms of what would be communicated to schools, how they were to use those funds, and how they would proceed. So I just wanted to ask through the chair if there's an update on where that is.
Yes, thanks. Through the chair, there is an update. What we did is we established a work group late in the 22-23 year, so end of May, beginning of June. So the group has met and started doing some review and some analysis about activity fee. Now that the work group, which is a group of our secondary principals and some board staff, are back. We'll get back together again to finalize. So really what they're doing is trying to look for a path forward. What makes sense for an activity fee, or even if it is an activity fee, what the processes would be. Now, the activity fees for the 23-24 year are the ones you mentioned. They were established. They started collecting them in the 22-23 year because that's how they do it. So that's sort of in place already. Whatever is collected, they're optional, as we've mentioned, will be what's used throughout this year. But this work group will have to finalize work with some proposals moving forward, because activity fees, or whatever they are, or whatever this process is going to be, starts pretty much later this fall and then builds into the spring. So they're still working on it, but more to come.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Corbett. Next, I have trustee Stefano Piscucci.
Thank you very much. This may not be the right meeting for this, but it's more of a timing issue, seeing how we're at the beginning of a school year. I understand, from receiving emails from the schools that I represent through School Messenger, that we're looking for, parent volunteers, school lunch monitors, so on and so forth. Over the past couple of days, I've received a couple of emails and I guess a question from a couple of parents. When it comes to food allergies with our students, are the school monitors or individuals who are walking around during lunch, are they made aware of the allergies per class? And again, I understand it's not the right meeting for this probably, but it is due to timing.
Can you give us an opportunity to investigate that and put that in issues and events?
Yeah, my concern is, little Johnny, parents going in, little Johnny's asking for the parent to help him open up their tuna sandwich. The parent then goes to another classroom. Little Sally asks her to open up I was gonna say peanut butter. We can't have peanut butter, but our a jam sandwich, and little Sally is allergic to fish. So I want to be able to ensure that, or at least find out if this is being told to our parents who are volunteers. Maybe not necessarily, label a child or put something in front of them saying that they have an issue, but showing that we can sort of navigate this world of allergies. So I appreciate any information you can put in the nation events. Thank you.
Thank you very much, trustee Stefano Piscucci. Next, I have trustee Mario Piscucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. The reason I want to speak to you is regarding sorry for that email thing that just happened here on the phone. There was something that came out, and I was looking for the email. I found it to the superintendent, Matthews. There was an issue with Galeden Park. There was a new trail being put in. Has that been pretty well put to bed now?
Through the chair, the city of Mississauga has communicated with Dufferin Peel about their intention to redevelop Galeden Park. From staff, I actually just received an update earlier today to note that the project has been issued for tender and that construction is anticipated to start towards the end of October.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, this was dated May 26th. I was trying to find, so I'm glad as that for, and I do again apologize for the noise. I have another question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Thank you. Through you to staff on this one here. Recently, well, actually about a year and a half ago, I had asked a question. When someone passed, when the schools are half-mast with their flags, we don't not necessarily always say what the reason is. So you're going by a school that's half-mast, you don't know why. And I suggested, not to say that's the right answer, but the fact of the matter is somehow identifying why the flags are at half-staff during time when people could saying, what's that all about? Literally having a poster, I guess, of some sort, or a little notice on the window or saying flags are, whatever. Because the fact of the matter is that some of these are at half-staff and we don't know why. That part of our communication would be, part of the parcel would be the communication. I'm coming from is the sayings that, okay, half-staff, and the reason is, it's not the individual who passed away is or recognition of, you can do the wording that you prefer. It's just a notification being a neighbor. Somehow we can do this on a, somehow we can do it on a regular basis as opposed to just an ad hoc basis. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Trustee Mario Piscucci. Do we have any other questions? See no questions, we move on to item J, which is declared interest items. We have no declared interest items this evening. Next, we're moving on to our in-camera session. We'll be taking a 10-minute recess in order to move into our
Motion to go in camera.
session. Perfect. Could I get a motion to move into in-camera? Moved by Trustee Bruno Inica.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be leaving at this time, so I just want you to know for the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I get all in favor to move into in-camera? Any opposed? Seeing none, we'll meet back in the in-camera room at 8:45.
Are we in camera now? Oh, there we are.
All righty, welcome back to our open session of our Administrative and Finance Committee meeting, starting off with our item L, report from our in-camera meeting. Mr. Bria Corbett.
Thank you, Chair Xavier, and through you. So during the in-camera session for September 12th, 2023, trustees approved the minutes of the in-camera session of June 6, 2023. We dealt with an HR matter. We dealt with a legal matter, and we addressed questions of an in-camera nature.
Perfect, thank you very much. Do we need a motion? Did I get a motion to approve those items? Moved by trustee Thomas. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none carried, our next meeting is November 7th, 2023, and we're adjourning tonight's meeting at 9:43. Thank you and have a good night. Motion to adjourn. Moved by trustee Stefano Piscucci. All in favor? Any opposed?